When Jeep first launched the Avenger, it's fair to say it was quite a departure for the American brand because it was small. Now don't get me wrong, there had been small Jeeps before, but this one is, well, really small. And then there was the fact that it was also launched first of all as an electric car, the brand's first. And if that wasn't enough for the die-hard fans to get their head round, it was only two-wheel drive. Now a two-wheel drive Jeep is a little bit like a vegan ploughman's lunch, because without all the other stuff, surely it's just, well, a lunch. But now the old order has been restored, because now you can have an Avenger with all-wheel drive. Although maybe not quite as you'd think. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Jeep Avenger 4xe. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now I've reviewed the Avenger a couple of times. When it first launched as an electric car, I reviewed it over on Auto EV, and of course we've also reviewed the little 1.2 petrol here on House of Cars. And it's not been without its plaudits and awards, the Avenger. It won the European Car of the Year award when it was launched, and also it won the Best Urban EV award in the Auto EV Awards. But the 4xe, this was the one I was really looking forward to trying. And I thought to myself, how am I going to really properly test it? Now, the problem is with SUVs, nobody really takes them off-road. I've got a Grand Cherokee and I have to admit, the number of times that it's ventured off the tarmac is very minimal. The most off-road work it's ever done is, well, a muddy field like this or a sandy beach down in Cornwall. So what was I going to do with the Avenger 4xe that was a little bit different? Well, I reviewed the standard electric one round the lovely roads of the Cotswolds, and the little 1.2 petrol I did round the leafy lanes of Surrey. Now I could have taken this on a Jeep off-road adventure, but that's organised by Jeep, so it's not going to highlight the car in any bad way. So I decided to put it through the test that most of my cars go through, which is a 900-mile round trip to Scotland over a weekend. Let's see how it fared, shall we? But before we do that, please make sure that you're subscribed to the House of Cars channel if you're not already a subscriber. And once you've watched the video, give it a little thumbs up if you enjoy it. And of course, as always, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars I feature on the channel, such as the Jeep Avenger 4xe, and of course, on the House of Cars channel overall. Right, let's crack on with a proper Scottish road test. However, before we move on, let's take a look at the main points of the new Jeep Avenger 4xe. So whilst the latest Avenger wears the 4xe badge like the bigger Renegade and Compass models, this is not a plug-in hybrid. It's powered by the same 1.2 litre 3-cylinder petrol engine we've tested before, but now adds 2 electric motors to provide permanent all-wheel drive and increase the power to 136 horsepower. The 4xe also provides better off-road performance by increasing wading ability, having a larger approach, breakover and departure angle, as well as new multi-link rear suspension system to enhance axle articulation and comfort off-road. 3 trim levels are available in the 4xe, including this limited edition North Face edition. And prices for the 4xe start at just over £31,000 and climb to over £35,000 depending on what trim you specify. So it's starting to sound, and dare I suggest look, a little bit more like a Jeep that we're used to on paper. How will it perform out here in the wilds of Scotland? Well, let's stick it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Now, like I said, I've reviewed the Avenger a couple of times, so I'm not going to go too much into the styling of it. But I'll maybe give a little bit of personal opinion on it, and you guys can also let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Now, this is a North Face edition. The North Face as in the outdoor brand, the clothing brand, which is quite a nice tie-up, I think, with Jeep, for Jeep to have. And with the North Face edition, you get a couple of little accessories with it. You get, I think you get a one-man tent with it, you get a sort of North Face cargo box for the boot, and you get a water bottle as well, which is quite nice to have, I suppose, but there we go. But you do get little sort of like North Face bits around the sort of like the exterior and interior to differentiate it from the standard Avenger, even the Avenger 4xe. And most special editions in some respects you go, oh, that's a bit tacky. Actually, I think they really work with this car, but we'll talk about that in a wee second. But the thing you really notice here is this big bonnet decal. Now this is a bit like the Renegade that we featured last week, where it's like a matte finish, sort of like decal, and Jeep say it's to stop reflections, you know, if the sun hits the bonnet, to stop reflection at the driver's eye. I think this works better on the Avenger than it does in the Renegade because it's wider. It's quite narrow in the Renegade, so I don't think it works quite as well. So it works really well there. And of course you get the North Face logo there, plus some topography graphics down this side here, which are the coordinates as well, which I think are to do with Mont Blanc. And there's another thing to do with Mont Blanc about the car as well. Anyway, there we go. They have changed the styling on the 4xe though. That is different. It sits a little bit higher, and its wading ability is increased. It's now got 400mm wading ability as opposed to the 230mm of a standard Avenger. So it's quite a big increase. You still get the Jeep styling cues of the 7 sort of like slot grille across the front, but obviously it's not really a grille, they're just the blocks. But again, they've got the topography graphic in them, and I think it just works really well. I love the sort of split light design. They've also moved the front fog lights as well to move them out of harm's way if you are off-roading with the car. And this front bumper area is different as well. And this is all this plastic here is moulded in colour, so that if it does get scratched and sort of like bashed up a little bit, if you are, you know, sort of like going down some green lanes or something with some, I know, some sort of like bramble hedgerows and stuff, scratches don't show up quite as much. It's also different here as well because the front wheels are a bit more exposed. So if you are clambering over a little bit of rocks or going down sort of like some rocky lanes and things, then they get better traction. There's not as much bodywork to sort of like come between them and their things. I do have to apologise, by the way, because I'm in this really lovely filming spot out on a road between Moffat and Selkirk in South Scotland, but it is the road that's there. So if you do hear cars going past, I apologise, but I do love this spot. It's such a picturesque place. Anyway, there we go. The other thing is you don't get the little 7-slot Willys Jeep thing in the front grille here. You get the X for the 4xe, and that's how you pronounce it, 4xe. It's not 4xe, it's 4xe. And of course the North Face gets these little yellow trim pieces here just to sort of like give it a bit of a lift as well. 3 colours available on the North Face, which is either this snow white, there's also storm grey and volcano black. And the storm grey and the snow white you can also have with a duotone finish with the volcano black roof, but this one's got all the one colour. Most I've seen in the storm grey, but I have to admit I really like it in the white. But I think this is a really good looking, I love the way they've changed it, I really do. It really makes it look quite beefy. I've always loved the look of the Avenger, but now I love it even more. Now it's inside profile you realise how small the Avenger actually is. It sits on the ECMP2 platform from the Stellantis group, obviously the parent company of Jeep. And it's shared obviously across that group with a lot of the small cars. The Corsa, the E2008, the Vauxhall Mokka, the DS3, those sort of cars, but it's smaller than a 2008 and a Mokka. It's a properly diddy little car, this. It's the same overall footprint as you'll get on a Corsa or something like a Volkswagen Polo. Now, they've changed quite a lot with the 4xe in terms of the styling, obviously, to make it look a little bit more butch, but also in terms of the engineering. Let's talk about the styling first. You get the sort of boxy wheel arches that you do normally in the car, but as I say, these are a hark back to the original Willys Jeep. It's another styling cue, those extended wheel arches that you get with a Jeep. And you'll notice as well the actual shape of the wheel arches, rather than being round, they are that square shape. Again, that's a styling cue. You look at the side of Jeeps and their wheel arches, they're all that squared off stylish shape. They've also knocked the wheel size down to 17 inches, which is a big difference, I think. And they're wrapped in these Goodyear mud and snow tyres. Now, they really do help the car, not just off-road, but on-road as well. But I'll talk about that when we're out driving it. But it's weird, isn't it? You think dropping down a size actually makes the car look a bit more butch, I think. The approach angle is now up to 22 degrees rather than the standard car's 20. Breakover is 21 degrees rather than the 20 degrees that you get out the standard car, and departure angle is 35 degrees. They've also increased the ride height of the car just by 10mm to 210mm, but I think it's made a big difference to the way the car actually sits. And as I say, remember, wading ability is now up to 400mm as opposed to the 230 of the standard car. Of course, you still get the plastic body cladding round the wheel arches and then down the side of the car, and like the front, that's moulded in colour. So of course, if you do pull up against like hedgerows and brambles and sticks and things, if it scratches, it doesn't look quite as bad as it would normally. You get standard fit roof rails on the car, and these are load bearing as well, which is quite cool. And then of course you get the little Jeep logo in the rear door there as well. Standard, a big chunky door handle there, but then the rear handle's up in the rear pillar here, which I must admit I don't really like, but never mind. There's lots of little Easter eggs around the car, as there is in the standard one. There's a little guy with a telescope on the front windscreen. Of course, you get the little ladybird moulded into the roof trim up there as well. But yeah, as I say, some small changes, but it's made a big difference, I think, to the way the Avenger 4xe really does look. Now, at the rear of the car, not really an awful lot has actually changed over the standard Avenger, but that's a good thing, because I think it's a really good looking little car. You still get the nice standard fit, obviously body coloured roof spoiler at the top there. You still get these very distinctive X motif rear lights, and that's sort of like an interpretation of the Jerry Can X that you get on the Renegade. So it's just that sort of X style look there, but they're a slightly more modernised version. But also in the little Easter egg of the 7-slot grille off the front of the Willys Jeep. That's quite nice as well, just in there. And of course they're slightly blistered on the lenses. The 4xe badge is done in a neon green, which is a little bit of a shame. It's not sort of like the yellow of the rest of the badging, but there you go, I suppose. And also as well, you do get this exposed tow hook on the back as well. That's the other difference with this one. That might have been quite nice to see that done in a different colour, you know, like the yellow as well. As I say, a different departure angle at the back, increased departure angle. You still get the exposed exhaust pipe there, because obviously it's got engine in this car. And of course you get your moulding colour black plastic rear bumper with reversing sensors and reverse camera there, and of course a rear wiper. Yay. Look, we don't need to go on too much about it. I think the changes they've made to the 4xe over the standard Avenger is brilliant. I love the look of the Avenger anyway, because I think it's a sort of, it's one of those designs, it's quite retro in some respects because it references an awful lot of Jeep's heritage, but it's a very modern looking car. I think the designers have really struck the right temperature with the Avenger, and I think the 4xe goes a stage further than that. It makes it look like a proper Jeep now. But that's my thought. What's your thought? Because that's what's important. Do you have an Avenger? Are you now being a little bit jealous, thinking, oh, that's actually the one I'd really quite like. I quite like that sort of butch look. Or do you think it's a little bit 4x4? Do you think the standard, more on-road biased Avenger looks better? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know them in the comment section down below. Now, boot space, it's a bit smaller at 325 litres, okay, which is 30 litres down on the electric Avenger and 55 litres down on the standard two-wheel drive petrol Avenger. And that's because there's a couple of electric motors and a smaller battery added into the car. If you do fold down the split 60/40 rear seat, it'll take total capacity up to 1,218 litres. But it's not exactly small, I have to admit. Now obviously I'm sort of travelling around this weekend, so I've got my big 42 litre rucksack in there, he says, which is still full of stuff. I've still left the sort of Jeep North Face box in there, and there's the one-man tent in there, and of course there's a water bottle and a bottle in there, that's there. And yesterday, obviously I didn't have my rucksack in it, but I did have my mother's walking frame in there as well, which I could get in without having to fold down the rear seats, which is quite good. And there's also some little bit of storage underneath the boot floor as well, although not an awful lot. But in terms of a small car, I don't think that's actually too bad. So whilst the literage is down, the actual usable space is good. Now, obviously it's a small car. As I say, it's sort of super mini size, and you can feel that when you get in the back of the car. There's no doubt about it. You need to put the head restraint up as well. However, you know, that's my driving position. I'm 5'8". I can sit behind myself. My son, who's a similar height to me, he's in his late 20s and he's a similar height to me. He was sat in this side yesterday with my mother, his grandmother, in the front seat, and that was pushed a bit further back. He did find it quite tight, but again, he said you can do it for a short journey. It was absolutely fine. Now, the North Face, you can see now with the interior, you're getting this special edition with the yellow accents in the seats. I'm going to talk a bit more about this design and the comfort of the seats when I move into the front. But in the back of it, you get these really natty sort of like drawstrings, like you get on sort of like, you know, some of the luggage, which I do quite. I mean, you're not going to hold an awful lot in that, but I quite like it. It's quite funky. Plus, you get the North Face logo on the backs of the seats. But what's really handy is you do get these little hoops across the top here, so you can hang on a carabiner, you know, like water bottles or things like that. So that's quite cool and funky. I like that. Plus, it's got rubber mats. It's got rubber mats, so when you're out in places like this, you just take them out and hose them down. Brilliant, fabulous. The standard fare Avenger single USB-C port in the back there, no centre armrest and no door bins. So that's why that's quite a nice thing to have. So to say, at least you've got a carabiner, you could actually hang a water bottle off that and slot down like an iPad for the kids down in there at least. So there is some storage. Headroom's okay. It's a reasonable height for, you know, so for me, because again, that's sort of more square off styling. And my feet get right underneath the driver's seat, even though that is in its lowest position. So whilst it does feel quite small on the back, obviously, at least you can get your feet underneath there and dance them around a little bit. But I do like the interior of the car, I have to say. But we're going to move into the front now, and I'm going to talk a bit more about what they've done to this North Face car. Two things. First of all, I've just realised obviously I'm now parked into the sun, which is creeping over the top of that mountain there. And if you're wondering why there's a big Ford Ranger parked in front of me, it's because the shepherd who looks after the sheep that just roam wild out here has obviously come to round a few up, so they've left a pickup truck there. Sorry. I couldn't very well throw him off his own land, could I? Anyway, there we go. Right, so we don't need to spend a massive amount of time in here because it's the Avenger interior. And as I say, I've reviewed the Avenger twice before. I'll pop a link up to my review of the little 1.2 litre petrol car as well, and probably the one in Auto EV as well, and the electric one. So they're probably worth a wee view as well if you're interested in those cars. But I want to just go over it again because there's a couple of... I really wanted to do a long trip in this car, and as I say, it was quite interesting. It fell on the week because I had a little bit of a mix-up. If you've watched my Renegade review, I went to book the Avenger and I actually booked a Renegade by mistake, but rather than cancel the Renegade, I kept it and I've reviewed that car. Not a lot of you have watched it, please watch it. And then I kept this one, but it fell in a week I was coming to Scotland. And I was a little bit worried when middle of last week, do I take it, do I not? And I thought, no, that's no whole point of taking it. What a brilliant interior to spend a bit of time in. I did 6 hours on the motorway on Friday. I'm filming this on a Sunday morning. On Friday, I drove it up from Surrey up into South Scotland. It was 6 hours on the motorway. And I tell you what, you start to really appreciate a car interior when you spend that level of time in it. And I really like the Avenger's interior. I really like it. It's one of the best of the Stellantis group cars. Hard plastic, don't get me wrong, but that makes it really easy to keep it clean and wipe it down. And one of the rivals for this car is the same on the inside, and I'll talk about competition a little bit later on. Anyway, right, what have we got? 10.25 inch infotainment screen, the Uconnect thing. You get the standard wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it's up in your line of sight, and it's nice and easy to use. You've got shortcut buttons there as well, so if you want to turn off things such as your lane keep assist and your speed limit warning, you just press the little car button there, and the first thing that comes up is those two shortcuts. So lane keep assist off and excessive speed warning off. That's it, and then back to CarPlay. And it's up in your line of sight, so it's nice and easy to see, it's nice and easy to use. I really like it. I think this is a really good little system. There are a couple of times, like now, you see, it's not quite responding quite as well as it should. You know, I mean, I've just got to be honest, look. You know, and it's I don't know what's going on there, but there you have it. But I do quite like the system. As I say, it's up in the line of sight and it's nice and relatively easy to use. You've also got, as I say, another physical button, this home button here. So if you want to go to the actual Jeep screen, which is this one, and then there's other screens there. Maybe that's the CarPlay that's causing that problem rather than the screen. Anyway, there we go. But there we've got our widgets there. So we've got sort of like our media in the centre, phone, CarPlay shortcut, navigation, application drawer. Then you move across navigation by TomTom, and then you move across there. There's your climate functions there. So you've got things such as you can control the temperature and the fan speed from there, plus your heated seats. Heated seats and heated windscreen are standard on the North Face. Okay, there's 3 trim levels you get with the 4xe. There's the lead-in model, which is, and they're different to the standard Avenger. So it's not, what is it, the standard Avenger? Longitude, and Summit. I can't remember what the middle one is. Anyway, you get Upland, Overland or North Face. Now the North Face is limited to 4,806 units. Why that number? Well, it's because that's the height of Mont Blanc in metres apparently, above sea level. So there you go. And it tells you over there, one of 4,806. And then this bit of the dashboard here has got this topographical, sort of like almost like an Ordnance Survey map on it. And I really like that. Again, it just lifts it. It just gives it a bit of interest to the interior. But there's more to it because these seats, I really want to talk about these seats. So the inserts in them are designed like a North Face puffer jacket. And they've just got this water repellent. It's a bit like this. I love manufacturers that just try different materials. And this is like a sort of neoprene. It really reminds me of, I had a Volvo C30 T5 years ago. And it had the two-tone interior where you had leather on this, sort of like the insert, and then the outside borders were this neoprene material. And that's what this feels like. So if you spill water on anything, it just beads and it just wipes off. What a sensible thing to do. And it feels soft and it's comfortable. But it's practical. It just makes so much sense, and I love that. And as I say, it's got rubber mats with the the yellow sort of like trim in it and things like to match the seats. Your magnetic cover here also has the North Face logo on it, and of course that's the usual magnetic cover like the iPad cover. And then underneath it's got the topographical map as well. That's cool. You've got a plethora of USB ports in there, plus a 12-volt socket, plus a wireless charging pad, plus a really deep cubby in there. Plus you get adaptable cup holders here, plus you get an armrest that does lift up, he said. No, it doesn't lift up, it doesn't. It slides. So you get more storage underneath there if you slide it back. Plus you get big door bins, you can drop a water bottle in. Plus you get this shelf in here where you can keep your sunglasses, like I've got mine, look at that. The only downside is, I'd really like that to have had like a rubber mat in it. I don't know why they didn't put more. If you were to go into your Jeep dealer and buy another set of rubber mats or something, just cut them and put them in there, because that would make all the difference and stop keys and things sliding around. But that's just handy for putting my sunglasses in, or a set of house keys or something. The interior just works for me. Lovely little 3-spoke steering wheel. You get paddles behind the steering wheel now, because you can use the gear shift functionality on this now. There's your gear function there, so park, reverse, neutral and drive. 10.25 inch screen there. You get a 10.25 inch TFT driver's display as well, which is a little bit adjustable. You can, not massively so, but again, it's a small car, what do you expect? But the speed readout is nice and clear at the top, and then the fuel gauge on the right, plus then a sort of like an economy meter on the left, plus then you've got your sort of like the centre section here. So if you're using your cruise control, for instance, it'll show you there, you know, the adaptive cruise control. I've got it set up so it shows the sort of where the drive is going, you know, whether it's battery or engine and things like that. Nice little, as I say, 3-spoke steering wheel with just the right amount of buttons on it. So media and phone controls over on your right, and then cruise control over on the left. That's cool. And then down by my right knee, you've got things like the heated front screen, alarm off, and a hill descent control. I'll talk more about the off-road ability when we drive the car rather than actually sort of like demonstrate it as such. No sunroof. That might have been quite nice, but anyway, it doesn't matter. There's headroom for the car, plenty of headroom for me, obviously. But these seats are so comfortable. 6 hours in them the other day. The driving position is just perfect. My mother's 80 odd. You know, her getting in and out of the car yesterday was just a breeze, because it's high enough where she's not dropping down into it, but it's not high like my Grand Cherokee where she's having to really sort of like pull herself up into it. You know, so she was dead easy getting in and out of the car yesterday, you know, for her 80s with limited mobility. And then she commented actually how comfortable the car was as well, which is quite good. Only thing to watch out, however, passenger seat's not height adjustable. And if you're tall, it is quite, somebody sat in the car the other day who's a bit taller than me, and they noted actually they nearly whacked their head getting in and out of it. So just be aware of that. But I love the interior of this car, I really do, and it's such a pleasant place to spend time. Yes, I know that some of the plastics are a bit hard, but look, you get physical buttons along here for adjusting temperature, volume, fan speed, switching on your aircon and off, your maximum defrost, your heated rear screen. And of course, that muscle memory as you're driving along, you just know which one's which and you just start to adjust it. It just works. I love it. It's brilliant. The only thing I would suggest to Jeep, the only thing I could maybe criticise it for a little bit when I was driving the other day, it'd be nice to maybe have a little knee pad just down the side of the transmission tunnel, because when you're sitting with your leg like that on the footrest, my knee's just against that slightly hard console. And as I say, I'm not a tall man, so I think that might be quite nice if you were able just to have if you had a little padded, you know, maybe out of this material, little padded cushion on the side there just to help with your knee there. That would be it. That's the only thing, on maybe a sunroof, that would be the only thing I could really say that I would like to change about the interior. But I love it, I really do. I do like the fact it's harder plastic, because you can wipe it clean, it just makes sense. And it's well built, you know. There's not a rattle from it. It's good, it's solid, it feels chunky and solid. And let's be honest, you know, I've had a few Jeeps. They're never the most luxurious cars. They might allude to it, but honestly, they are genuinely just a notch below things like Audi, BMW, Range Rover, those type of cars. So actually, I don't really expect too much from the brand of Jeep. I expect it to be a little bit more utilitarian than luxury, and that's what you get here. But it's got everything you need. It's got a comfortable driving position, the seats are brilliant, standard equipment levels very, very high on this car, and the whole thing just works for me. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant car inside. Right, time to get technical. 1.2 litre 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. I know a lot of people have their opinions on this engine, but that's what it has, and I've found it to be very, very good. 136 horsepower. You'll see some reviews will quote 145, that's brake horsepower, okay? You've got 2 electric motors, one up at the front that works in combination with the engine, but then you have a separate electric motor that drives the rear wheels, that sits on the rear axle, okay? Now, up to 19 miles an hour, the car is permanent all-wheel drive, okay? So you've got the front engine doing front wheels, rear electric motor doing rear wheels, okay? Between 19 miles an hour and 56 miles an hour, it will only use the rear motor when grip's needed, okay? Up to that 50-50 sort of torque split between the two, okay? So if it finds traction is needed between 19 miles an hour and 56 miles an hour, the rear motor kicks in and it becomes four-wheel drive again, okay? Above 56 miles an hour, it disengages completely to be more fuel efficient. All right, so it's quite a clever system, and it's also very, very quick. Now, talking of fuel efficiency, that was something I found really disappointing with the Renegade 4xe, which was a plug-in hybrid, because it didn't give me an awful lot of range, and it wasn't that great when it came to fuel economy. This is completely different. I've done 570 miles since Friday, and it's been averaging 44 miles to the gallon out of this car, and 95% of the driving I've been doing has been motorway, so 70 odd miles an hour. Okay, that's really good, I think. I'm getting 400 miles out of a tank on this car. So again, for a small car, I don't think that's too bad. And as I say, I found it to be very fuel efficient, you know, in the way that it's been the way it's been driving. Now, the gearbox in this car is a 6-speed DCT system, and it's way better than you get in the Renegade as well. So the whole technical package for me really, really works on this little Avenger. I really like the way this has been set up, and I think it makes an awful lot of sense to give you that combination of all-wheel drive ability, good traction and grip out on roads, especially on these sort of like wet, you know, Scottish mountainous roads, but also very fuel efficient on the motorway as well. I'm really impressed with this. Right, let's get the Avenger away from the off-road and put it on-road, and let's see how we get on with it. Right, so let's start with the numbers. It's 136 horsepower. If you've seen some reviews that say 145, that's brake horsepower, okay? So it's 136 horsepower, and it's a 0 to 60 time of about 9.5 seconds. But do you know what? I think this feels quicker than that Renegade 4xe that I had the other week. Everyone said to me, that's a really quick little car. I don't think it is. I think this is by far the quicker of the two cars. It certainly feels it. And this is another thing about it. I think in terms of its drivetrain, it's so much nicer. Now, I know people have reservations about this 1.2 3-cylinder engine. I get that, but here and now with this 6-speed DCT gearbox, this just really works, and works really, really well for me. I think this is a really well matched car, and also just the way it all works together with a hybrid system, I can't fault it. Right, so how does it perform on road? Really, really well, I think, really well. Let me start by talking about drive modes, because it does have Jeep's Select Train Response. Now remember, I was talking about how the power delivery works. Up to 19 miles an hour, you have permanent all-wheel drive. So the rear motor provides drive, obviously, and the engine and front motor does the front wheels, that does the back wheels. Then between 19 miles an hour and 56 miles an hour, what you have then is it will decide if the rear motor is needed. So it goes into a situation where traction's lost at the back, or it starts to detect wheel slip, or it's, you know, maybe you're out on a slightly snowy covered road, it will start to activate the rear motor if it needs extra traction. Above 56 miles an hour, it becomes a front wheel drive car for efficiency, okay? But above 56 miles an hour, I'll tell you what, it doesn't feel out of its depth on the road. So although you lose that rear motor, the amount of power that it provides isn't an awful lot. So actually it doesn't feel like the Renegade did, and at higher motorway speeds, it felt really sluggish. This doesn't. This just, I don't know, I can't really describe it. For a car that has nearly 100 horsepower less than that Renegade, this feels like a much sprightlier car. It's just something about it. And the gearbox is a joy. This 6-speed DCT, it always seems to find itself in the right gear at the right time for when you need it. And that's something that that Renegade just didn't do. You've got 2 paddles behind the steering wheel, sorry. You can change gear if you want yourself. So you can go up and down the gears if you want, and then if you just do it while it's in D, it just selects the gear and then it'll eventually go back to auto mode. Or you can press the M button, or the D and M button down here, and it goes into manual mode, and it allows you to have that control over it. So you've got a lot of control here. The suspension, that raise and ride height, it's not a lot, but there's obviously some retuning being done to the dampers and the springs, because this thing just feels right. And I think as well, the decision to drop it to 17-inch wheels and put those Squidgy or Goodyear tyres on it helps a huge amount as well, because it just rides beautifully well. Don't get me wrong, it's not a Citroen, but what it does feel like is just a really well-judged car. There just seems to be enough compliancy. And I think a lot of it's in the tyres as well, where if you do hit an expansion joint or ridge, yes, you can feel it, but it doesn't send massive jolts through the cars. And these longer undulations on this country road, the dampers are just really well judged. You don't feel it like it just carries on with this sort of like almost porpoising motion. It just stops it after a couple of bits. It's just done. So it's dealing with it really well. The steering, it doesn't look, don't get me wrong, it's not pin sharp, it's not a Lotus Elise, but it just seems to be the right way. So at low speeds in town, it's really nice and easy to sort of like position it into like tight car park spaces, turn it round, you know, in a really tight space. The steering's light enough. Yet out here, its weight's up enough. It could do with maybe being a bit heavier if you wanted the absolute last bit of precision. But other than that, I'll tell you what, this is a joy to drive. There's very few cars, I think, really where everything works so well together that it goes on to make up a car that you just sit there and go, this is a really good car. There's really nothing you could really fault with it. And this is one of those cars. It's not a hot hatch, it's not a little sports car, it's not a supercar or a massive big GT. It's just a small, everyday SUV that has off-road ability and a hybrid drivetrain for better efficiency. But you know what? It's a bloody joy, this little thing. I love this little car. It's great. Now, the select terrain response system, which is the drive mode button down here, okay? This changes things as well. So if you go into, say, sport, like I'm in now, what it will now do is provide e-boost. So there's much quicker response from the accelerator. Okay, now as I say, you don't want to hustle it down the road because it's not going to turn it into like a little hot hatch, but all of a sudden you've got a much quicker response from the accelerator pedal, and it'll hold on to the gears longer, and you get that e-boost function as well, so that helps with the acceleration. Okay, so that's your sport mode. If you go into, I normally leave it in auto where it'll obviously just decide things for itself, but you've also got sand and mud. And then what that will then do, sand and mud will obviously, it has its own select amount, its own type of gear ratios. So it'll change the gear ratios to, again, if you're crawling through, I don't know, it's like a real muddy track, or you're going through one of these fields and it's a bit boggy, or, you know, when you're on a sandy beach, you know, you go windsurfing or something, and you've got that really sort of like, you know, surface that's not firm at all, and you just need that extra little bit of torque just to push you through the softer surface. That's what it does. And then you've got a snow mode as well, and the snow mode will alter the stability control system. So again, it won't activate the stability control if it detects wheel spin, because that's actually what you want in snow. You want a bit of wheel spin, you want to get some traction going so the car then responds. So you've got all that ability without sort of like all the big hardware, because it's all done through software, in a little usable everyday SUV. Now if you were, I don't know, a local vet or a district nurse or or a school teacher, you live out in places like this where you are, your job relies on you getting to work, but occasionally it's going to be treacherous conditions, but you don't really need a big hulking Defender and you want something efficient. This is your car. This is it. This is perfect because it's as usable as a small Super Mini, but it has all the sort of like ability that you would ever really need from an SUV. It's sort of the perfect scenario, and it's done by Jeep, so you know it's going to work. That's the other thing. It's Jeep. It works. The steering's good, the performance is good, the efficiency is good. I couldn't believe how good this car was on the motorway the other day. I genuinely nearly didn't bring it. I thought to myself, oh, you know what? My Mini Aceman's outside, my John Cooper Works Aceman, that's quite a nice car to drive up to Scotland, I'll take that. My new long-termer, which I'll tell you about in another video, that's arrived. I thought, oh, maybe I'll give it a run. I've also got the use of a Kia EV3 at the moment from Kia. That's a good car on a long trip. I thought, no, and then I went, no, I really want to see what this is like. Above 70 miles an hour, when I drive at 70, 75 miles an hour, this thing is just beautiful on the motorway. It's comfortable, I've got a nice driving position, all the controls are easy to use, the infotainment system's easy, it's up in my line of sight, I get good visibility, it's got enough performance, and yet it was still doing over 40 miles to the gallon at that speed up the motorway. Without doubt, up until now, my favourite Avenger has been the electric one. The one little 1.2 petrol we had with the manual box, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. It's still an Avenger, and I still quite like it. But there was no doubt it lacked a bit of performance. But I thought it suits a purpose, and I can understand why people buy it. But this thing is another world. This is a brilliant car. It's very, very rare that I sit there and go, this is brilliant. There's not really anything to fault here. But genuinely, there isn't really anything to fault here. I'm so impressed with this car. So impressed with it. The suspension's compliant, the steering's nice, the brakes are good. I haven't even talked about the brakes. Brakes are excellent. Acceleration's good, efficiency's good, it's comfortable to drive, it's easy to use, it's easy to live with. And it's Jeep. So it's dependable. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant little car. Right, how much does all this cost? Well, it's not cheap in some respects, okay? It's not a cheap Jeep, okay? As I say, there are 3 trim levels that you go for. Bearing in mind that also includes the North Face, which is the most expensive, but this is a limited edition car, okay? 4,806 units, remember. But it's the best specified, and as I say, it's the most expensive one. So the different trim levels that you get in the car in comparison with the other Avengers that we've had, you start with the Upland, which is £31,219, okay? Next up is the Overland, which is sort of Jeep's higher specification trim level, and that adds £2,000 premium onto that, so that's 33,219. And then the North Face that this one is adds another £2,000 onto that, which is £35,219. So as I say, it's not exactly a cheap car for a small 4x4, but it is a hybrid and you do get a good fuel economy with it. But I do understand there are cheaper alternatives out there, which brings me neatly on to competition. Now I'm keeping my iPad with me because, as I say, the competition for this car is, well, there's quite a lot in fairness, because it's a B segment SUV and that's a massive market in Europe. 1 in every 5 new cars sold in Europe today is this B-segment SUV. Jeep's had considerable success with the Avenger, but as I say, there's an awful lot of cars out there to choose from. Now, of course, Jeep is part of Stellantis Group, and of course this car shares that platform with a lot of small B-segment SUVs that Stellantis have from their other brands, which are the Peugeot 2008, Vauxhall Mocha, DS3, and of course now there's also the Alfa Romeo Junior Ibrida, which is the hybrid version of that. None of them really have that sort of off-road focus that the Jeep has, in fairness. So if you are living in a place like this and you do need that all-wheel drive ability, the Jeep is probably the best one out of all of those in terms of that. And I say it doesn't exactly compromise on-road either. But of course, you've also got other cars in this marketplace to consider. Cars such as, well, the Toyota Yaris Cross, which is a massive seller in this market, and my most watched review, by the way, on House of Cars, so thank you to everyone who's watched that review. And of course, its partner Lexus, it has the LBX, which is also another very popular review on the channel as well, so thank you. And they're really good cars. I really like those two cars. So again, their competition for it. Honda HR-V, that's another car we've tested, you know, sort of like small. In fact, actually it feels quite big, the HR-V, in some respects in comparison to this in some ways, and that's a hybrid as well. Not so keen on the transmission on that car, that's the only thing, but that's a big seller and it's a good car. Kia Stonic, now that's just had a bit of a facelift. I was supposed to do a studio walk round of the facelifted Kia Stonic, but I couldn't make it the day that I was asked to go there. I just couldn't get around to it. So if you want to know a little bit more about the Kia Stonic and its facelift, can I recommend two reviewers to go and look at? Either Tim Rodey Drive Stuff, which is Tim Rodey's channel, or Auto Social UK, which is Tish. So go and watch those two if you want to know a little bit more about the Kia Stonic. Unless Kia get me a car soon and I can review it then, don't watch them, watch my one. But if not, watch Tim and Tish's one. They're really, really good. What else have we got? Ford Puma. I could forget Ford Puma. That, you know, that's a big seller. You know, massive seller, especially in the UK. What else have we got? Suzuki Vitara, Renault Captur, Hyundai Kona, Skoda Kamiq, Volkswagen T-Cross, Seat Arona, Mazda MX-30. So as I say, there is a huge amount of competition for the Avenger 4xe in this market. However, if you said, well, Brian, it's a Jeep, it's off-road, its ability, you know, it's got hybrid drivetrain, just like the roughy-tufty looks of it. All of that, I hear what you're saying, and I am a massive Jeep fan. However, it has one big problem, and that big problem comes from Dacia, because you can also buy the brilliant Dacia Duster with a hybrid drivetrain and all-wheel drive, and that's another brilliant car. Oh, and it happens to be quite a bit cheaper. Now, like I said at the beginning, this is me having tested all the Jeep Avengers that's available, the electric one, the standard petrol, and obviously now the hybrid car. And it's interesting because I've always really liked the Avenger, but when I had the standard petrol one last year on the channel, not everyone was a fan of it. My partner Liz, who's a massive Jeep fan like I am and obviously drives our Grand Cherokee, to her she said it just didn't feel like a proper Jeep. It just didn't, it felt like a poor substitute. It felt like something with a Jeep badge on it, that was it. And I sort of got what she was saying, and I did conclude that video by saying maybe that car's not designed to appeal to Jeep people like us. Maybe it's to get the new people into the Jeep brand, which, let's be honest, was desperately needed. And that's exactly what it's done. The Avenger has been a big success for Jeep. But in terms of my favourite Avenger, it was always the electric one. For me, that was the Avenger that really did just win me over and make most sense. Not anymore, because as far as I'm concerned, this new 4xe is without doubt the best Avenger that you can buy. It's very difficult to sort of like really explain, but every now and again a car really clicks with me where I really struggle to criticise it in any big way. I think it drives really well. I think the drivetrain works brilliantly. There's enough off-road ability for 99% of people will ever need 99% of their life. You know, bringing it off here, slightly off-road, or a sandy beach in Cornwall, or down a forest track when you go mountain biking or camping or whatever, this will do it. It's spacious enough for a small family, but it's easy enough to drive round about town. It's not a great big hulking SUV, but it's comfortable enough on the motorway. It performs well out on the twisty roads. It's fuel efficient when it's on the motorway. And I just love the way that it looks. I think they've really absolutely nailed it with this car. The only fly in the ointment for me is all of that is available in a Dacia Duster for a lot less money. However, in terms of the Jeep Avenger 4xe, as far as I'm concerned, not only is this the best Avenger that Jeep make, but quite possibly I think this could be the best car that Jeep makes. And if this is what the future of Jeep is going to be like, please Jeep, can we have more of this? Because this is brilliant. Just watch your prices. Thank you for watching another road test review on House of Cars and for joining me up in sunny Scotland. If you've enjoyed the review, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course also make sure that you are subscribed to the House of Cars channel, because that certainly would be appreciated. If you have any comments, then please leave them down below. Have you got an Avenger? How are you getting on with it? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Have you never considered one? Have you got any questions for me? Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comment section down below. Now, if you're into your Instagram, you can follow me there as well, because I'm at House of Cars 1973. So if you want to follow me there on social media, that would be appreciated. And remember, whether or not it is a small car or a large car, a slow car or a fast car, an old car or a new car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon.